came to BC because we had some bookings, but we also came because that's where the Lord led us. And so part of what we do is we just follow where the Holy Spirit goes, either to the right or to the left. And he said Port Hardy this week. So we are here, and we thank you for hosting us. So what we feel the Lord has called us to, we have a real heart for kids, and we have a real heart for hurting kids. The Lord has called us to speak in schools or in communities or churches and reach out to not only hurting kids, but to hurting people. And it seems that wherever we've kind of shared our story, we've had people that were elderly and people that were young that have been touched by our story. So we really pray for open doors into the school. When we go back onto the mainland, we are actually speaking in a school in Coquitlam, so we're happy about that, to be able to speak to a high school audience of people. And we just really feel like our world is so hurting, and people are just hungry and thirsty for honesty. And there's so little of it, it seems, in our world. And so part of my story, a lot of my story is full of hurts, but a lot of it is choices that I made and places that I was as a person. And we just want to be honest and vulnerable with you. And yeah, I think that's a need in our society, is just to be completely honest and open. So that's what we would like to do. Bruce has written most of the songs that he'll sing tonight, but this one he hasn't written, but he wishes that he would have.
Hold on to me as we go, as we roll down this unfamiliar road. And although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone. I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they'll fill you with fear. The trouble, it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone. I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble, it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone. Gonna make this place your home.
So before we start, I just want you to think of somebody. It could be somebody in your life or somebody that you know or a famous person think about, in your mind, the worst person that you know. So it could be someone that's hurt you. It could be someone that's hurt someone that you know. And just think about that person for a minute. And what would you like to see happen to that person? And what do you actually think that person deserves for what they've done? Let me give you an example. There's a story in the Bible about a woman at the well. And I'll just describe this scenario for you. Jesus and his disciples were walking to a town, and the disciples went into town to get supplies, and Jesus stayed at the well. And while he was there, a woman came to the well. It was the middle of the afternoon when she came to the well, and she was a Samaritan woman. And Jesus spoke to her, which didn't happen. People just didn't speak to Samaritan women. And it was the middle of the afternoon. So it was very hot, which would not have been an ideal time for her to go to the well. So the reason that she went to the well in the middle of the afternoon and not earlier in the morning when all the other women went to the water or went to fetch water for their cattle and their sheep is because she was too ashamed to go, or she maybe wasn't allowed to go in the morning because of all the choices and the bad things that she had done in her life. So it talks about how Jesus had a conversation with this woman, and how this woman Jesus said to her, "You've been married 5 times, and the man that you're with isn't even your husband." And she was just amazed, and he talked to her in a loving way about all these choices that she'd made and all the things that she'd done in her life. And she just couldn't believe that he knew all these things about her, yet he still loved her, and he still spoke to her in a loving way. And he still asked for a drink of water from her, which was unheard of. And so this woman was so changed. Her life was just so dramatically changed, and she was so in awe of the love that Jesus offered her that she went into town and started telling all the people, these people that she was ashamed to be around before, and she started telling them about Jesus and about the love that he had and that he was the Messiah that they had been waiting for. So picture that person that you thought of at the beginning and maybe compare them to someone like the woman at the well. And just hold that thought in your mind. Now, I want to be honest with you. I told you I wanted to have an honest conversation with you guys tonight. And so I want to be honest with you and tell you that that woman at the well and myself actually have a lot in common. Now, I've been married to Bruce for 6 years now, but I've been married 4 times. So sometimes when you think somebody's been married for 4 times, maybe your perception of me changes, or maybe you think, how can somebody do that? Or, like when you first read about the woman at the well or the person that you thought of, right? Those judgments maybe come up in your mind, or questions about my integrity or my character maybe arise. And so I just want to share my story with you and just be honest with you. How many of you have ever been in a haunted house? Yeah, I've been in a haunted house, and I don't like haunted houses for a number of reasons now that I'm a Christian, but I just want to talk about one specifically tonight. When I was young and in elementary school, our elementary school, the grade 6 class, always put on this huge haunted house. And every year, everybody got so excited about the haunted house. It was almost more exciting than the Christmas pageant, which is kind of sad, but... and so every year, the haunted house, the grade 6 class made the haunted house, and everybody got so excited about it. The year that I was in kindergarten, when I went to kindergarten, we went every second day. And the day that they had the haunted house was not my day to go to school. And I really, really wanted to go in the haunted house. So I think I even lied to my mom and told her that it was my day to go to school. In those days, it was okay for your kids to walk to school on their own. I grew up in a small town in Saskatchewan, and so I walked to school. And so I walked to school that day, And I got to school, and my teacher said, well, it's not your day to go to school, and she sent me home. And so I said, well, could I just want to go through the haunted house. Could I just do that? And she said, no, it's not your day. You have to go. So I was like heartbroken. So I'm sitting on the front steps of my school, and I'm crying. So you picture this little 5-year-old girl sitting on the front steps. I was a pretty cute little girl, too. So I had lots of attention. So, and because I was in a small town, most of the kids that were in grade 6, or the older kids, babysat me or were neighbors or were relatives. And so I had lots of people coming up and asking me. And my cousin came up, and he was in grade 6. And he said, I explained the situation to him. And the haunted house happened to be in his classroom. So he took me up to his teacher and said, she's supposed to go home, but could I just take her through the haunted house? And so his teacher agreed, and so I was pretty excited about that. And so as we started going through the haunted house, of course, I had to touch gooey things, and it was all dark and scary, and so I'm, kind of cuddling into my cousin. And then I felt his hands down the front of my pants. And I froze, and I instantly changed. And I was scared, and I was alone, and I was with this person that I no longer trusted, that broke my trust. And I was in a scary place, and it was dark, and I couldn't get out. And I remember trying to fumble my way through to get out and to see the light where I could get out. And all the kids were excited at the end and wanted to see how I enjoyed it. And I was crying, and I just wanted to get home. And I remember running through the people and running down the stairs of this big old school. And I remember I could hear my cousin coming after me, and I was so scared. And he caught up to me, and he caught me again and grabbed me, and he whispered in my ear. He said, "Don't you tell your mommy, because you lied to her. You wanted to come here today, and I know that you liked it." And so I never told my mom for years. And I walked home. I literally remember walking home from school that day, and I was a different little girl. I lost my childhood spirit. And from that point on, I just withdrew into myself and started becoming an angry little girl. And I had no escape, because I couldn't tell my mom. So I was in this prison, and that prison for me lasted till I was about 12 years old. From that time forward until I was 12 years old and old enough to say stop, my cousin continually sought me out at every family gathering, or at the lake at my parents, when I try to walk from my grandma's from my parents up to my grandma's, or anywhere that he could possibly seek me out. I ran from him, and I was scared of him. And I began to develop a fear and a anxiety inside of myself, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I didn't have anyone to talk to. So that turned into hardness, and I became an angry little girl. And I became angrier and angrier. By the time I was 12 years old, I was drinking and smoking, hanging around with boys and partying, and just not making good choices for a 12-year-old little girl, and putting myself in situations that were compromising. When I was 14 years old, we went on a family ski trip, and I had already got to a point in my relationship with my parents where I was just angry, and so I didn't really care what they thought or said anyways. There was, as far as rules, they had lots of rules. I didn't care about any of them. So we were staying in a hotel room, and it was New Year's Eve, and my parents were in one hotel room, and my aunt and myself were in another hotel room with my brother and his best friend who came on the ski trip. So it was New Year's Eve, and all the parents were partying in one room which left us teenagers to be in another room. And I got so drunk that I hardly even remember passing out on the bed. I do remember my brother leaving the room. And the next thing I remember is his friend dragging me off the bed into the bathroom, and I remember him throwing me on the cold bathroom floor and having his way with me. And I remember he was panicked, and I remember trying to fight him off, but I was literally semi-conscious. And I remember him dragging me back to the bed, and that's all that I remember. And the next morning I woke up, and I felt so dirty, and I felt so violated. And that was the first day of our ski trip, and I had to spend the rest of the week with this guy and pretending like everything's okay. And that just sent me further inside of myself, and it sent me, my heart hardened even more, and I became an extremely angry young girl. When I got back to school, I thought finally I would get some relief from this torment of the Christmas holidays that I had just spent. And when I got back to school, all my friends were mad at me and whispering about me and calling me names in the hallway, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And finally, I took one of my girlfriends into the change room, and I said, "What is going on? Like, why is everyone so mad at me?" And she said, "How could you be such a slut?" And I just said, I don't know what you're talking about. And this guy that was my brother's friend decided that maybe I would say something, and so he should maybe say something first. So he started a rumor that we had slept together, knowing that I knew he was going out with one of my friends. And so all of my friends were angry with me because they thought that this was the choice that I had made. And I was completely devastated. And I came home from school that day, and I was so depressed and so brokenhearted, and I just wanted to get into my bedroom and cry. And my parents met me at the door, and my brother was there, and he was angry. And my parents were sitting at the kitchen table like we were supposed to have a family meeting, and I thought, oh, how could this day get any worse? And they started accusing me of the same thing. And my mom said, "Bonnie, I'm so disappointed in you." And I listened to her go on and on about how disappointed they were that I would do something like that. And I finally yelled, "I didn't sleep with him. He raped me." And I started going through the scenario of my change in my behavior from that first night of that ski trip and how I isolated myself and the choices that I made after that. And they sat there looking at me, knowing that I was telling the truth, but that they had just accused me of something they couldn't take back. And not knowing at that point how to reach me. And from that point on, they lost me. I was unreachable. And I became this drug addict, this alcoholic, this party girl who put on a big smile, who had lots of friends at school, and who was beautiful and popular and funny and could get drunk and drink anyone under the table. And that was my life for the next probably 5 or 10 years. But inside, I was so hurting and so broken and so hard and so cold. The next few weeks after this incident happened, I became so depressed. I actually got to a place where I just thought, you know what, everybody will be just better off if I'm not here. And so I went into my dad's bathroom and I took one of his razor blades, and in our bathroom, I went into our bathroom and I closed the door and I locked it. And in our bathroom, we could pull the drawer out so that even if you could pick the lock, you couldn't get in because the drawer was pulled out. And so I did that. And the only way then into the bathroom was through the laundry chute. And I thought, I sat on the floor, and I remember just sitting there crying. And I remember just thinking, nobody's going to care if I'm gone anyways. And as I pressed the razor blade into my wrist and I watched it bleed, I thought, I wonder how long it would take for me to bleed to death. I wonder how deep I have to actually cut to make it really fast. And would it go fast? And what would happen? And I was just watching the blood ooze out of my wrist through my tears. And then I heard a voice. And it was a male voice. And he said to me, "Bonnie, my child, don't do it. I have so much that I want to use you for." And I sat there, kind of looking around, wondering, did that really just happen? Did I really just hear that? And then the thoughts started coming in my mind that, you know what? The only person that could get into this bathroom was my little brother, because he's the only one small enough to crawl through the laundry chute. And I started thinking about that. And if I were to do this, he would be the one to have to come in and unlock the door for my parents. And then I started thinking about how my parents really did love me and how they would miss me. And all these thoughts of hope just started coming into my mind. And I wondered, who is this voice that I just heard? As I sat there, just sobbing and sobbing on the bathroom floor.
So many things were shattered deep within her heart, and what had not been stolen now lay lifeless in the dark. The fragile flame of innocence that she carried as a child was nothing more than a wisp of smoke, longing for a spark. She shut the door, she began to cry. Would anybody hear her sad goodbye? Then a gentle voice came calling, like a strong hand reaching out, saying, "Please, precious child, don't give up. There is still so much I have for you, beyond the hurt and doubt. When the clouds have cleared, you'll see the sun again. Believe me." She sat there for a moment, just how long she couldn't say. Darkness still surrounded her, only now there was a way out of this madness, a way that she could see. For one step, then another, lead her to the light of day. Yes, the candle that was cold had found a flame. And she knew that she would not forget the day when a gentle voice came calling, like a strong hand reaching out, saying, "Please, precious child, don't give up. There is still so much I have for you, beyond the hurt and doubt. When the clouds have cleared, you'll see the sun again. Believe me. Believe me. Believe in me.
My next years of high school, I would go into a huge downward spiral. My life was a mess, and I was an angry person, and I was living out my life in so many destructive ways. I had lots of friends, but I really didn't have any friends because I wasn't a good friend. I continually put my friends' lives and other people's lives at risk by drinking and driving. I had lots of boyfriends, but all the boys knew that I was just a tease. I would let things get so far, and then I would have flashbacks. The girls all thought I was a slut, and I really didn't care. I hated the hallways of my school. I hated the whispers. I hated the dirty looks. I hated the locker slamming. I hated walking them alone. I hated walking them after a weekend, not knowing what I had done at a party or on the weekend because I couldn't remember. When I was in grade 11, I got kicked out of school. I was so drunk and so high at school that I went to the bathroom on the front lawn of the school in front of everyone. And I don't even remember. I was jokingly voted the most unlikely to succeed in life. I hated living at home, and I only did it because it was convenient for me. I had a few wake-up calls in high school. My boyfriend that I was dating was drinking and driving one night and hit a train and was killed instantly. I had a best friend in grade 11 that I didn't even know was hurting, committed suicide. And I didn't even know. But I thought how easily it could have been me. Because behind this party persona and behind this popular girl who got drunk all the time and didn't know what she was doing, I was so depressed and so hurting and so lost.
There's a faceless fear that has me by the throat, fills my lungs with darkness like a thick and heavy smoke. I walk the halls in bondage, pretending I'm the king. The hurt I hold inside of me, I hide from everything. Anybody see I'm hanging by a thread? If only I could run straight into the sun, only I could run to you. Out of the empty night to the precious light, tell me I could run to you. What has not been broken is withered up and gone, along with all the promises I built my hopes upon. TBH, I'm dying for a breath of life. Inbox me a message that'll lead me to the light. Can anybody see I'm hanging by a thread? If only I could run straight into the sun, only I could run to you. Out of the empty night into the precious light, tell me I could run to you. If only I could run straight into the sun. Out of the empty night to the precious light, tell me I could run to you.
Sometimes in life, God sends you angels on earth to help you along your way. My parents had finally had enough of my disrespect, and they decided that it was time for me to get a taste of what life was supposed to be really like. So they kicked me out of the house. There was a very gentle man in my life that saw something in me that I couldn't see. He persistently asked me, with my parents' permission, if I would move in with him and his wife. I persistently refused, until one day that I had reached such a low in my life that I walked into his office and asked if the offer was still open. That same day, I packed up my small little apartment and moved into the home of my high school principal and his wife. I lived in their home for almost a year, and though I didn't appreciate it then, it made me realize that someone saw something in me, and maybe there was something there to be seen, and it gave me hope. On my 19th birthday, I found myself engaged. It wouldn't last long, but soon after I broke the engagement, I found out I was pregnant. Now there's a wake-up call. I have someone that's depending on me to have it together. I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit partying, and I honestly believe that this was God's way of saving my life. 3 months after I would turn 20, I had a little girl named JC. I named her JC, even though I didn't really have a faith, because I knew that it was the angel that Jesus had sent to save me from myself.
Well, I was walking home from school on a cold winter day. Took a shortcut through the woods, and I lost my way. Well, it was getting late, and I was scared and alone. Then a kind old man took my hand and he led me home. Mama couldn't see him, but he was standing there, and I knew in my heart he was the answer to my prayers. Oh, well, I believe there are angels among us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hours. Show us how to live. Teach us how to give. Light us to the light of love. Life had troubled times and had me down on my knees. There's always been someone to come along and comfort me. A kind word from a stranger to lend a helping hand. A phone call from a friend just to say I understand. And ain't it kind of funny, at the dark end of the road, someone lights the way with just a single ray of hope. Oh, will I believe there are angels among us, sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hours. Show us how to live. Teach us how to give. And light us with the light of love. They wear so many faces, show up in the strangest places to grace us with God's mercy in our time of need. Oh, will I believe that there are angels among us? They're sent down to us from somewhere up above. They come to you and me in our darkest hours to show us how to live, teach us how to give, and guide us to the light of love. Guide us to the light of love. Guide us to the light of love.
At that point in my life, I decided I should start to investigate this voice that I heard when I was 14 and where it came from. I started taking my daughter to church. We started going to a church in Calgary, Alberta. And I met a guy there who had grown up on the streets of Montreal and turned his life around. He grew up, he didn't have a family, his mother was dead. He raised himself on the streets and turned his life around and was now serving at a church in downtown Calgary to help youth who were troubled. I fell instantly in love. I thought, look at this guy and what an amazing story he has. We were married within 8 months. And though we had struggles, financial struggles and bad luck, we loved each other very much. After a year, I excitedly found myself pregnant again. And we were so looking forward to a little brother or sister for JC. In 2 years, we moved to Red Deer, and in 2 years, we ended up moving 3 times because Dean was never happy with the place where we lived, and he wanted something better for his family. A number of times over the next few months, crazy things would happen. I would go to pay a bill, and there wouldn't be any money. Then for the second time that my student loan lump sum payment had been deposited into my account, our account was empty. Dean finally fessed up and said that he had a gambling problem. I told him that I dearly loved him, but that he would have to get himself straightened out before he could be part of our life. And I asked him to move out, and he refused. I was in school for social work, and just weeks before I had finished my practicum hours at the women's shelter in Red Deer, Alberta, now I found myself a client. In the next few weeks, I would find myself 8 months pregnant, writing final exams, moving into my own little house with my daughter, JC, and completely brokenhearted at the brokenness in my life. I waited for weeks to get my damage deposit back. Dean kept telling me that it was coming and that the guy kept stalling. So I decided to take things into my own hands. I went down to my previous landlord's office, downtown Red Deer, and I demanded my damage deposit back. He had some discernment, and he took me quietly into his office. He explained that I would not be getting my damage deposit back because that we hadn't paid rent for the last 4 months. He could clearly see my unbelief and my confusion at the situation. So he told me, I won't charge you for the past 4 months, but you will not be getting your damage deposit. Out of curiosity, I called previous landlords that we had from the past 2 years. Each time that we had moved, it was because we hadn't paid the rent for months. Each break-in that we had over the 2 years that we lived in Red Deer were set up by Dean so that he could pawn things off from our house. So I went to Dean's employer to see what damage had been done there. He had been fired 6 months previous. So where did he spend all his nights when he went out for night shift? And where did all of our money come from? The anger and the pain that I thought I had dealt with and was maybe gone started to resurface. Danae Kathleen came in God's perfect time. She was another little angel that God sent to help heal my broken heart. However, within weeks of Danae's birth, it was apparent that there was something wrong. And because I was nursing her, I would have to spend time in the hospital with her. I asked Dean if he would stay at my house with JC and take her to school so I could be in the hospital with Danae. So he agreed. And I thought maybe this would be good healing time for them. The next morning, Dean came up to the hospital and he said, I have something to tell you. He took me to the window of the Red Deer Hospital. And he said, I took JC to school this morning, and then when I came back, this is what I found. And he pointed out the window, and I could see a column of smoke. He said, your house burned down this morning. I think it's the only time in my life I remember being completely out of control of my emotions. I was in the pediatric ward at the Red Deer Hospital, and I was running around hysterically screaming and crying, and the doctors and the nurses were trying to stop me to give me a shot of Valium, and because I was making all the kids and the parents in the ward just as crazy. I called my dad at the farm in Saskatchewan. He was on the cedar at the time, and he immediately got off the cedar and came to Red Deer to help. Dean was supposed to meet him at the house with the RCMP to go through everything that had happened in the scenario. And Dad met the RCMP there, but Dean didn't show up. After the fire, the fact that Dean and I were separated kind of became irrelevant because the media came to the hospital and the gifts started pouring in and the money started pouring in. And the fact was, I needed him. So we tried to make a new start. Thousands and thousands of dollars came pouring in. And both of us went to the bank and explained the history of his gambling problem, and that we had to put the money into an account where both of us had to sign to get the money out. So that was fine. That was dealt with the bank manager. So Dean was at work one day at his new job that my friend had got for him. And I found a house, and I tried to put a damage deposit, and they said I had to put the damage deposit on this new house today, or it would be gone. So I phoned the bank manager, and I said, this is my dilemma. He's at work. I have to get the damage deposit on this place today. And she put me on hold, and she came back, and she was silent. And she said, I don't know how to tell you this. She said, that account is empty. I left Red Deer that day with my 2 little girls, never to return. When I got back to my parents' place in Saskatchewan, I contacted Dean's mom, the one that I thought was dead. She wasn't. I wanted her to hear from me what had happened. She was happy to hear that I was out of the marriage, and she told me I should go for an HIV test. She apologized on behalf of her son, and she said she didn't know how to talk to me or how to tell me. And she said I probably wouldn't have believed her anyways. She said that he uses women across Canada at churches this way. He finds women that are vulnerable. And she said, I don't know how many people he's slept with, so you better go get tested. Thankfully, God protected me. I was a numb wreck. I spent the next 2 years almost in isolation. I was on 24-hour suicide watch. We worked out a system where I just had to say one word to my parents, and they had counselors on call that would be there within a few minutes. I literally could not even get out of bed to nurse Danae. My mom would hear her cry in the night and bring her to me, allow me time to nurse, and then take her back to bed. A few weeks after I moved home, the RCMP from Red Deer phoned, and they said that they started to find things from my house that my dad had said were in the house. My dad phoned from the tractor. He said, you don't think he started it, do you? I said, I was just thinking the same thing. We drove back to Red Deer and found everything that was claimed to be in the fire in pawn shops. My dad bought everything back. The rest of the stuff that they tried to salvage from the house fire immediately after the fire was in a garage in the backyard. So we had a horse trailer with us, and we went to try and fill the horse trailer. Thank you. Thank you. We opened the garage, and it was empty. Anyway, the initial fire reports stated that he didn't use accelerants. Stated that there were no accelerants used. So he got away with it. Though I know that the Red Deer City Police really wanted to nail him. The next few years of my life, I tried to spend getting over the turmoil and the depression and the pain and the hurt and the betrayal and the lack of trust. And I ran into an old high school friend who was a pretty sweet talker. And my counselor tried to convince me over and over again that I wasn't ready for a relationship. But I had this void inside of me that needed to be filled that was so empty. And I just needed to fill it. And I thought maybe I could fill it with him. I was married and divorced within 6 months. He beat me 3 times in front of my kids before I said, I'm not living with this. And I'm not going to let my kids grow up like this. At this point in my life, I think there were a lot of people who had really given up on me. The destructive choices that I continued to make in my life were not only damaging to me, but now they were really damaging to my girls. Can you imagine what my kids went through? Divorced mom, angry mom, hurting mom, abused mom, divorced mom, angry mom, hurting mom. I was dragging my kids through it. But where did I look to fill that void and that pain? Another guy. This guy came from a Christian home, so I thought, how could I go wrong? There were actually no signs. I thought maybe I got it right this time. But little did I know what he was to be like, and little did he know the anger and the rage that I carried inside. We started off on a really great foot. We had a healthy and happy marriage to begin with, until the first time that he pushed me into the wall. And I went berserk. I said, Mark, we can talk through anything, but you cannot physically handle me. That was like giving him the key of how to make Bonnie crazy. Started off with little shoves into the wall. Then it became cruel things that he would say. It escalated over the next 5 years. The violence in our marriage escalated over the next 5 years to him throwing me downstairs and me running back up to smoke him, because I wasn't going to let my kids see me go through that again. And I wasn't going to let them know that it was okay to take it and not fight back. We often had people over to our house, which was great, because then there was beer and partying and no abuse. But as soon as everyone left, the fighting started again. In the midst of it all, we really tried to give an honest effort at reconciling. We thought maybe bringing a baby into it would be a real gift for all of us, and it was. Riley Jo came along, and we all loved her dearly, and she was another angel that God had sent. And if there's one thing that I have learned through everything, is that God is sovereign over everything, and He allowed it. So He has a real purpose for her. Mark and I really did love each other, but for whatever reason, we were just two people who were very angry and without hope. One of my dreams and one of my passions has always been emergency medicine. But I never believed that I could do it. I decided I was going to take some control in my life, and so I took my paramedic course. In order to do that, I had to go away every second weekend for a year. And it actually became, in that time of my life, and in that violence of that home, that weekend away for every second weekend for a full year, that weekend away became my time of solace and my time of retreat. And my course was a distance learning course, so it was just in a small town in Saskatchewan. And it was expensive to stay in a hotel, but there was a convent in the town that was virtually empty. So we went and asked the nuns if they would agree to let us stay in a room every second weekend for a full year. And so we did, for $10 a night. And I began to spend my evenings in the sanctuary on my knees. And I began to cry out to God and to ask Him to come and save me. And I finally turned my face to Him. I asked forgiveness for all the hurts that I had caused, for the hurts for the people in my life, and the hurts that I've caused my kids and my ex-husbands. And then it happened. One night, I was laying in my bed in the convent. And all of a sudden I could feel darkness all around me. And I could see beside my bed in the doorway a dark shadow. And my heart was just beating like crazy. And I was laying in my bed with my eyes closed, but I was seeing this. And all of a sudden, in that corner and in that corner of the room appeared two little boys, one in each corner. And they were in the fetal position, and they were scared of this dark shadow. And I instantly made that connection that these little boys are scared, and it's of this dark shadow. And I lay there, and tears started coming down my face, and my eyes are closed, but I'm seeing this, and I'm panicking, and my heart was beating probably 200 miles a minute. And all of a sudden, on the back wall, at the foot of my bed, appeared Jesus. And he was sitting on a stool, and his robe was draped over his laps. And he was surrounded by light. And he said, "Bonnie, you tell those two little boys to come and sit on my knee." And so the first little boy that was in that corner, he went up and he climbed up this little ladder and he sat on Jesus' knee. And as soon as he sat on Jesus' knee, I could just feel this. And I actually thought, I remember thinking in my head, some grown man has just been healed. It was just a wiping clean. And all of a sudden, this little boy that had sat on Jesus' knee was now skipping around Jesus, and like he was free. And so the second little boy was still sitting there, and he was scared to go. And I went over and I said, "It's okay." And I helped him up the ladder. And as soon as he sat on Jesus' knee, the same thing. And the dark shadow in the doorway disappeared. And I'm laying there in my bed with my eyes closed, and tears are streaming down my face, and I'm wondering, what just happened? Like, what was that? And what was it for? And then Jesus said to me, "Okay, Bonnie, it's your turn." And I just started sobbing, and tears were coming down, and I didn't know what to do because I'm laying in my bed and my eyes are closed, and I'm seeing this, and I'm going, what do I do? And all of a sudden, that 5-year-old little girl that walked home from school that day came up out of my body and went and sat on Jesus' knee. And I was healed instantly. The rage and the shame and the need to fill the void was gone. The insecurities, the lack of the hurt from the betrayal and the lack of trust, gone. I have not been the same woman since that day.
In this crazy world of push and shove, when it's more than I can do to rise above, when I'm all alone and my heart is heavy like a stone, and I need a loving hand to guide me home. Oh, the Father's loving hand can wipe a tear away. It can help you lift your head up and hold it high. Yes, the Father's loving hand, it's gentle but firm, and it helps the helpless child through the storm. And as I look back on my life until now, there are things that I do different if I knew how. But I have no shame, 'cause it's all been washed away by the one who freely gave his life away. And the Father's loving hand can wipe a tear away. It can help you lift your head up and hold it high. Yes, the Father's loving hand, it's gentle but firm, and it helps the helpless child through the storm. And now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, then I pray the Lord my soul to take. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. And when the sheep have lost their way, there's a shepherd who will always say, well, my Father's loving hand can wipe a tear away. It can help you lift your head up and hold it high. And the Father's loving hand, it's gentle but firm, and it helps the helpless child through the storm. Through the storm, through the storm.
The healing for me that night was complete. You cannot experience the healing touch of Jesus and ever be the same again. The anger and rage that once consumed me was gone, it was wiped clean. The shame, gone. Forgiveness for my past and my choices, gone. Given. I remember driving home that weekend actually thinking, this is going to make my marriage better. Because I had nothing left in me to fight. I had no anger. Unfortunately, Mark and I had already established such a pattern of violence in our home that it was too late to break it. And I had changed the game. It actually made him crazy. I can't really say that I blame him. It was just the change in my heart. Regardless, the abuse escalated, and our marriage ended on a September evening as I was trying to leave with my 3 children. Unfortunately, living in rural Saskatchewan means the response time for 911 can be very slow. I endured a 2.5-hour beating as I was trying to leave with my kids, which has left deep wounds in each of my children that in God's time He will heal. It wouldn't be very long after that when I would hear a call from the Lord to become a pastor. Really? Do you know anything about me? I answered that call. I went to seminary with my 3 kids. That's when I met Bruce. The gift that God had for me once I finally was whole and healed and completely turned to Him. He had the gift of someone that could love me the way that He intended me to be loved. Remember the woman at the well? With gentleness and compassion, Jesus showed her everything that He knew about her and everything about her, and He still loved her.
I've spent my life running away, running from shadows and hiding my shame, too afraid to let somebody see inside of me. Keep the door shut tight and the curtains closed, like there ain't no one home. But then you came into my night, a pure unfading light, revealing all my secrets. Then you loved me anyway. I had waited for so long for my Savior to come along and rescue me from burdens I could no longer bear. When I was thirsty, you were there. Come meet the man who knows me inside out, like he's some kind of prophet, erasing my doubt. Jesus, you said if I drank the water you would give to me, I would never be thirsty, never again, and I would find eternity in you. And you came into my night, a pure unfading light, revealing all my secrets. Then you loved me anyway. I had waited for so long for my Savior to come along and rescue me from burdens I could no longer bear. When I was thirsty, you were there. You were there. Thank you, Jesus. You were there.
These are all my secrets. Why do I share my story with you? Let me tell you why. Because I was a really lost and hurting person. I was really angry and really hurting. And after all the soul searching and all the counseling and all the spiritual seeking, the only place that I found healing was in the arms of Jesus. And despite all that I have done, He loves me. And He loves you. We live in such a hurting world. People are so thirsty. So many kids are hurting. You know, God gave us this bus. It was a gift from Him. And we named it Miley. Because we got it the same week that Miley Cyrus did her little dance at the music awards. And everybody in the world is pointing fingers at her and judging her and calling her down. But that girl is hurting. She is a hurting young woman. And instead of pointing fingers at her, we need to be praying for her. We need to be speaking out authority of Jesus on her and blessing on her. The Justin Biebers of this world. Everybody has a story. Miley Cyrus has a story. And you don't know it. And God calls us to pray for those people. My ex-husbands have a story. Bruce's ex-wife has a story. And our job is to pray for them. We pray for our exes every day. We pour out blessing on them. Because that's what Jesus calls us to do. I want you to hear 3 things tonight. Everybody has a story. And we are to love them. If my story and Bruce's songs have touched you at all, or if you relate in any way, or you know someone that's gone through some hurts, or you're going through that, or you've gone through that, or you know of someone, you need to know this. Never, 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 never give up. Never give up on yourself, and never give up on that person. Pray for them. Ask for prayer. Speak out the authority of Jesus in your life. Let Him fill that void. And this is the third thing. Judgment and unforgiveness are toxic and poison to your body, to your soul, to your spirit. Judgment and unforgiveness are poison and toxic to your body. And the only thing that can fight them is prayer. The only way that you can forgive somebody for the hurts that they've caused is by blessing them and lifting them up in prayer and freeing yourself of the unforgiveness and freeing yourself of the bitterness. You guys have a great church here. We've been parked out here for the last 4 days. It's been an amazing place for us to be. Parked out there. People that are walking by all day, every day, come to our bus, knocking on our bus, just being friendly, needing prayer. They're thirsty. They're hungry. Not just for food. You guys have an awesome ministry team here. Pastor George and Pastor Karen. They are awesome people. Their leadership team. Port Hardy is very blessed because this place has anointing. If anyone here tonight needs prayer or needs to talk to someone, Pastor George is available. Pastor Karen is available. Any of their leadership team, I'm sure they've made arrangements for that. You can come up and talk to them. You can come up and talk to us if you'd like. Bruce is just going to close in prayer.
Father God, I thank you so much that you love us. And we can't fathom your love. We sang a song tonight that spoke about your love is enormous. And it is, and we can't fathom it. Father, you sent your son Jesus to our world, into our mess, into our brokenness. He became a man, completely a human being. And he suffered and died for us. Wow. Thank you. And you invite us to come and meet you. To come meet the man who knows me inside out. Father, I just pray tonight that we would be just soft to you, that our hearts would be broken before you, that we would know you deeper, that we would hunger for you more, that we would be able to believe more fervently your truth. And it is a simple truth. That God so loved our world, this world. God so loved Port Hardy that he gave his only son, his only one, that whoever believes in him will never perish, but they will have everlasting life. That's pretty simple. You've made it simple for us, and I thank you for that. It wasn't simple for you, but it is for us. Help us to be like that woman at the well who experienced freedom from shame and brokenness. Help us to be effective as we run back to our village and say, come meet the man who knows me inside out, so that you can believe for yourself. Give us wisdom and discernment and compassion for every single person we meet. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.